Welcome to Pavitra, an ecosystem for your soul. At Pavitra, we aim to enhance the health, wellness, and spiritual quotient of all living beings. We're also launching products shortly which are pure, Pavitra, organic, spiritual, created with the help of underprivileged women in our efforts to empower them with a more fruitful life. We aim to partner with like minded individuals, corporations, NGOs. If you'd like to partner with us, please connect with us on our social media or email platforms, and we will partner with you. We also offer services for all religious and festival occasions. We are now live on Instagram at Pavitra Connect and on Facebook. Please do follow us for the latest updates on our meditation sessions, webinars, seminars, workshops, upcoming product and service launches. We are also now live on YouTube at Pavitra Connect. Please subscribe to our channel for Pavitra music, which is sure to enlighten and lift your soul. We also live stream on our YouTube channel, Pavitra Connect. This evening is the first of our web series titled Pavitra Salute, which is our way of honoring our heroes of today, from the armed forces to those who are making a difference to us in our societies. We hope we can all learn from them and get inspired. I would now like to request Deepak to introduce our first guest on Pavitra Salute.
Thank you, Chetan. It's a privilege to introduce Group Captain Amit Roongta. Well, we all have heroes in our life. They may be film stars, musicians, entertainers. But there are these set of heroes who work behind the scene. They work 25/7. They work across different terrains, from the scorching heat of Rajasthan to the Siachen glaciers, where the temperatures fall below 50 degrees, minus 50 degrees. So it's our time to salute these heroes who work tirelessly 24/7 so that we can sleep peacefully. So Amit is my college friend. We were in Sydney together. And you know how life in Commerce College is. It's all about having fun, entertainment, dating, freaking out. And suddenly, after 12th, Amit disappeared. And we didn't know where he went. And he was with the Air Force for 22 years, after which he came back to life. He presented himself back to us. He was in the NDA, where he got the Best in Flying trophy. He was an active combatant in the Kargil War of 1999. He was commended by the Chief of Air Force and the Army staff for his professionalism and being a role model for other aviators. He represented the Indian Air Force at the Staff College in Japan, where he did his master's in defense and strategic studies. He has flown our Prime Minister Modi, yeah, as well as many cabinet ministers. So He has been posted across India, serving our motherland. With these words, over to Group Captain Amit Roongta to take off.
Thank you very much, Deepak, for your very, very generous words. Good evening to all my friends who've taken the time out to join us today. And thank you to Pavitra for providing this platform. I just hope this will be just an easy conversation that we'll have today. And since I think the entire audience is from the civil background, this is what I've been told. So we'll keep the talk very simple, and please feel free to ask me any questions or any myths or any doubts that you might have at the end of the talk or in between. So Deepak and Chetan will be there, who will kind of help you in moderating the questions. All right. So
Amit, you can post that question to the host.
All right. Okay. So as Chetan explained, Pavitra is an organization which is all about peace. It is about spreading wellness. It is about spreading happiness in the world. So some of you might be wondering that, having somebody from the armed forces are associated with wars, with violence, and quite contrary to some of the things that we are seeking to achieve through Pavitra. So I would just like to give a little background. What is it that the armed forces do? What is it? Why do we even have the armed forces? In an ideal world, we should not have any wars. There should not be any requirement for any armed forces. And that's the way it should be. So let's go back to history of our country. So our country, India, which is also called Bharat and also called Hindustan. So what is the symbol of our country? The national emblem of our country are the 4 lions, which you will see on every important government building. You can normally see only 3 lions because the 4th lion is right behind. So you at any given time you can see only 3 lions. This symbol is of Emperor Ashok, and Emperor Ashok also has this original symbol was in Sarnath, and I had an opportunity to go there a couple of years back with my extended family and see it firsthand. So one of our greatest kings at that time, about 3rd, 4th century BC, was Chandragupta Maurya. He kind of united the whole of northern India, present day Pakistan, stretching all the way to Afghanistan into one entity. His son Bindusur extended it even further, and his grandson Ashok, who we also sometimes refer to as Ashoka the Great, उनके ऊपर एक picture भी बनी थी in which Shah Rukh Khan was starring. So he was quite a ruthless king, as if you want to extend your kingdom, you have to be ruthless. You have to fight a lot of wars, and he kept doing that. And at the end of a particularly devastating war in Kalinga, which is present-day Orissa, at the end of the war, when he went around and he saw the immense suffering all over, he was filled with a lot of remorse, and he decided to give up war. And he embraced Buddhism, and he's instrumental for spreading Buddhism in our country and even our neighboring countries. Slowly, he started disbanding his army and started spending less and less on defense. And by the time he was, old and about to die, he actually only had a token army with him. One of the greatest rulers of his time had a token army with him. Well, his reputation was such that while he lived, nobody attacked India. And that was one of the golden ages of India. And it was considered one of the best periods. However, the moment he died, for the next 300 years, 400 years, it is a dark ages of India. We were attacked by all kinds of people. There were rebellions in the kingdom, and the entire magnificent kingdom which Ashoka had founded, he had managed to unite the whole of India into one whole. And this is the first time that India as an entity actually emerged. And we follow the national emblem of Ashoka, but that completely ceased to exist within 50 years of his, less than 50 years, within 30 years of his existence. So what I'm trying to emphasize is the armed forces. Earlier, many countries used to call it the war ministry. Today, we call it the defense ministry. So the armed forces, powerful armed forces, are very, very important in order to maintain peace, in order that we can follow all the things and propagate all the things that Pavitra wants to propagate. So we ensure in the armed forces that we are able to do whatever we wish to do. And that is, I just wanted to give a background of why we require to have the armed forces. It's to maintain peace. It's the most important instrument of diplomacy. They say that the man who carries a big stick speaks in a soft voice. If you don't have a stick and you're trying to negotiate, what's there to negotiate? Because the other person knows that if I don't listen to him, there's not much that he can do. But if I carry a big stick with me, well, he knows the repercussions of not negotiating. So it is the ultimate instrument of diplomacy. You will find that the Americans speak in the sweetest language possible. We are working together and we are equal partners and all kinds of fancy stuff because they carry a big stick. All right. So the importance of the armed forces. Hopefully you don't have to ever use the stick, but it should be a stick which should be visible. It should be a stick which should be usable. Very important. It should not be a decorative stick. All right. So we'll move on from this. So, we got our freedom in 47. Immediately after freedom, we had baptism by fire. We had the Kashmir operations in 1948, followed by operations with China in 1962, with Pakistan in 65. And since we got our freedom through the non-violent movement, to a large extent, it was felt initially that we don't require very strong armed forces. And our diplomacy itself can work, and we seek peace. However, after the Chinese debacle in 1962, we realized that there's only so much that diplomacy can do. And there are a lot of countries against whom there is no external pressure or diplomacy which works. You need to have your own stick. And of course, continue with diplomacy. So we started rearming ourselves. Pakistan kind of mistook that in 1965, and they did I'm not going to dwell too much on the 1965 war. However, that was a kind of a stalemate. But our crowning moment came in 1971. And once again, contrary to popular belief, of course, Josh is important, but Josh ke saath hosh, very important. So when the war was imminent in March, April of 1971, General Manekshaw, who was the army chief, at that time, he told the Prime Minister that I guarantee you a defeat unless you give me time to prepare. Telling that to the Prime Minister of the stature of Indira Gandhi, who wielded absolute power and broke absolutely no resistance from anybody, even in the cabinet, let alone an army chief, required a lot of guts. But she was gracious enough to give him the time. And finally, the war happened in December. We had everything pitted against us. And the most important thing was it had to be a short war, because the Americans with their 7th Fleet would have ensured that the war would not progress in our favor in more than 15, 20 days is all that we had. And so we had just about 2 weeks to have an objective of liberating and creating a completely new country in East Pakistan, which was subsequently renamed Bangladesh. The war started on the 4th of December, and on 16th December, that is 12 days later, we had an unconditional surrender of 93,000 prisoners of war in East Pakistan. 93,000. That's the highest surrender, public surrender, that too, after World War II. The last time such a big number had happened was in 1945, when Germany surrendered and subsequently Japan surrendered. After that, till date, it continues to be the second biggest surrender in modern history of warfare. Moving on from that, we continue to be in a state of war. This is another interesting question which some people ask. So what do you all do during peacetime? But ma'am, there is no peacetime. We are surrounded by hostile countries on all sides, out of which two primary bigger neighbors continue to be very hostile towards us. We have unresolved border disputes with them. In 1987, we captured the Siachen Glacier. Now, let me just try and explain what is the Siachen Glacier. So basically, we have the international border, which is not disputed. And then we have the line of control, which is disputed, but which is the actual holding position line between India and Pakistan. And beyond a certain point is the glacier, which was unmanned by both the countries. And because it is strategically very important, because it kind of allows China and Pakistan to be connected. So it's a lot of strategic importance to it, because that is the dividing line that we have. And it's the world's highest battlefield. Let me just see if I can show you something. 1 minute. Yeah, so this is a photograph of the Siachen Glacier, which, so as you can see, it's massive. The average altitude is about 18,000 feet. Temperatures go down from -40 to -50 degrees centigrade. So when somebody says India is a hot country, I always say, sir, we have soldiers, thousands of them, living in temperatures ranging from -40 to -60 degrees centigrade with the wind chill effect, at altitudes ranging from 18,000 feet to 22,000 feet. Do you have anybody living in these temperatures in your countries? So that's the kind of place that our soldiers live in. Now, let me just explain. Now, as you can see, the ridge line over here, yeah. So the highest peak over here, I'm sorry, I'm not able to get a pointer to show it. Let me just see if I can do that. Yeah, 1 sec. Okay, I'm unable to get a pointer. So just see the highest peak, as you can see. Can everybody see the highest peak? Deepak, can you see that?
Yeah, it's visible. It's clearly visible.
So that peak used to be called Kher Peak. Kher Peak was named after the founding father of Pakistan, Quaid-e-Azam Jinnah. It's the highest peak. So this peak was with the Pakistanis. And remaining smaller peaks, the relatively lesser altitude peaks, they were with us. But, in the mountain warfare, it's very important to hold the heights, because you can fire from the higher position to the lower position. But it's very difficult to fire from the lower position to the higher position. So we were suffering a lot of casualties because of this reason. So we mounted certain... So I'm just trying to highlight it. So if you see on the left side, that is where we try to mount an assault from, because the slope is lesser, it's less steep. But since there is absolutely no camouflage and it's impossible to do operations in the night in that kind of terrain, so we were completely exposed, and a lot of our operations were unsuccessful with a lot of casualties. So Subedar Bana Singh ji, who was later awarded the Paramveer Chakra, he formed a special team and he made an assault from the right side, which is, like a steep cliff. Can you see on the right side? Yeah.
Yes.
And he made an assault from there. At that night, the temperature was reported to be minus 33 degrees. There was a snowstorm going. He reached on the top with another sepoy, Chunilal. And since it was such an arduous climb, he's not a trained mountaineer, he's just a soldier. And since it was such an arduous climb, he wasn't able to carry sufficient weapons or equipment with him. He took out his kukri, and in a hand-to-hand fight, the two of them, they killed 7 Pakistanis who were in that bunker.
Wow.
And captured that post and lived to tell the tale. That post is now called Bana Post in honor of Subedar Bana Singh ji, who captured that post. And for this, he was awarded the highest gallantry award that India has, which is the Paramveer Chakra. And I'll just try and show you his photograph. Yeah, here he is. So this is Subedar Bana Singh ji. He's 83 years old now, and every year the Republic Day parade, he leads the parade. So he's amongst the very few Indians who have been awarded the Paramveer Chakra and who are alive. Generally, this award is given for, very conspicuous act of gallantry in the face of the enemy beyond the call of duty, and is generally given posthumously. So there have been only 21 awardees till date. He is one of them who's alive. That's my son with him. And it was a proud privilege to meet him last year during the Republic Day parade. So this was just to give you a little insight into some of the operations which are going on. We'll now come to the Kargil War in 1999. A lot of us were around at that time. I had the privilege of being part of that campaign. I was a young flight lieutenant at that time. So in Kargil, our main challenge, once again, was firstly intelligence, very poor intelligence. We did not know if there are 200 people or 2,000 people. We did not know, are they part of the regular army? Are they terrorists? Are they terrorists supported by the army? Poor intelligence. We did not know their positions. We did not know exactly where they are based. And at the same time, we knew that they are there because we had reports that they are there from the local shepherds. And more importantly, they started targeting the NH1A, which is the all-weather highway which connects Srinagar to Leh. So if that highway gets blocked, actually Ladakh gets blocked from the country, because the other highway which goes from Manali to Ladakh, that's not an all-weather highway. So this is the only all-weather road which connects, and which is just next to the LOC. So without logistics supply, you will just not be able to fight. So the main challenge in Kargil was poor intelligence. And secondly, once we started getting a grasp of what is there and the strength of the enemy through various reconnaissance missions, through various probing missions, the limitation was set by the government, where they said that you cannot cross the LOC. So normally, whenever the enemy is on a hill or an elevated feature, right from ancient days, the forts were always built on hills, on mountains. Because as I explained to you, there's a distinct advantage if you're on top. And so the best way to fight the enemy is to encircle the enemy. When you encircle the enemy, now you cut off the supplies of the enemy and you force the enemy to come down. And when the enemy comes down, that's the time you fight. Because if you have to climb up and fight the enemy, the casualties that you will be taking will be extremely high. Normally, the casualty rate is up in the region of about 2 to 3%, in which normal infantry soldiers around the world fight. In Kargil War, it was expected to be close to 25 to 30%. The final figure was significantly lesser than that. But that's because you are climbing up a mountain. The enemy is in a well-fortified bunker on top of that mountain and is shooting at you, and you do not have any camouflage. You have nothing to defend yourself. Those who've seen the terrain in Leh there's not a single hill, there's not a single boulder behind which you can take any refuge. So what do? The only camouflage that we had was darkness. So almost all operations during Kargil were carried out by night because that was the only camouflage we had. And because it was carried out by night, it had its attendant limitations in terms of reduced visibility for us, ability to operate during a very small time frame, etc., etc. Kargil campaign is today taught in military academies around the world as a demo mountain campaign. During my tenure in Japan, when I was interacting with officers from militaries of so many countries, and I did my master's from the University of Tokyo in defense and strategic studies. And we had views from people from all over the world because we had officers from close to 40 top militaries of the world who were doing this course. And they were unanimous that it laid a precedent. The Kargil campaign conducted by the Indian Armed Forces laid a precedent of how you fight in the mountains. This is the way you fight. If you have to fight in the mountains, this is the way you must fight. Against all odds, against situations where you got to motivate your men. Now, how do you motivate your men in such circumstances? Because when you know that a 33% expected casualty rate means if you look to the left or your right, you know that one of them is not going to be around after some time. It's very difficult to motivate your men to fight. So how did the officers motivate their men? The only way to motivate them was to lead by example. They led from the front. Now the ratio of officers to men, by men I mean Jawans, sailors, airmen, depending on the service, is normally 1:40. That means for every one officer, there are 40 Jawans in a typical army battalion. But the casualties that we had during the Kargil war was 1:20. That means for every 20 soldiers who died, one officer died. That means it was a disproportionately high number of casualties amongst the officers. So it was not, aap aage chalo and I am coming. It's like, I'm going in front and you follow me. And no soldier can refuse that. That is a very, very special kind of leadership and truly exemplifies courage under fire. So that's what the Kargil war was. I just thought I'll give you a little insight into that. And we'll talk more about it during the question and answer session if you all have any this thing. I'll also now move on to a little more recent operation that we had in Balakot, which was just last year, 26th, 27th of February 2019. On the 26th of February, we launched an attack on in Balakot, which is across the international border actually. So it's in mainland Pakistan, against some terrorist camps. Now, Pakistan airspace is one of the most heavily defended airspaces in the world, especially in that area. To be able to penetrate that, hit the target, and come back without a single casualty requires a lot of planning. It cannot be done in a hurry. It cannot be, okay, you're just told and do it. We plan for these scenarios. Over years, over months, you have exercises and you gather intelligence and a lot goes into it so that one day when you have to do it, you're able to do it. The next day, there was an attack from their side in which we downed an F-16 and they downed our MiG-21. They took Wing Commander Abhinandan as prisoner of war. And he came back after 2 days. I can take questions on this if you have any.
So Amit, we have a couple of questions on this particular subject. So what makes Wing Commander Abhinandan a hero? And second is, how can a MiG-21, which is like a third generation fighter aircraft down an F-16, which is a fourth generation aircraft. Yeah. So you can throw some light on it.
Okay, interesting. All right, Deepak. So this is a doubt which many people might have, and especially because these strikes were closely followed by elections, so they got heavily politicized. We'll not get into the politics of it. We'll not get into what prompted the political leadership to take this decision. We'll just stick to what we know. So, what makes Wing Commander Abhinandan a hero? Well, firstly, what makes him a hero is that he answered the call of duty in time. He was able to thwart the attack and down an F-16. Now, before I come to the second part of the question, now what happens is there's a unique terrain in that part of the country. So when we work out where will the probable attacks come from, so there are only certain passes through which the attack can come because of the very high terrain over there. Now, why should we even use a MiG-21 against an F-16? Now, when we are carrying out the attack, which we did the previous day, in which 12 of our Mirage 2000s entered and annihilated some of the terrorist camps, we are in charge. So we choose what time, we choose what weapon systems we want to use, we choose our best pilots, we choose the place of entry. Everything is controlled by us. The challenge is to get as close to the target as possible without getting detected. Because the earlier you're detected, the lesser your chances of being able to successfully carry out the attack. So the aim is to get as close to the target. You will get detected. Once you've done your bombing or you've done whatever mission you have, you will get detected because the destruction will be there. Then your sole aim is to engage afterburner, have max speed, and just come back. But what's important is to get as close to the target without getting detected. However, on the next day, when Pakistan attacked us, at that time, they are using their best planes, the F-16s. They are using their best pilots that they have. They are choosing the place of entry that they want to enter from. And we fight with what we have at that point of time. Let me repeat that. So whoever is attacking will use the best of what he has. And the person who's defending will fight with whatever he has at that point of time, because the element of surprise is there. So to that extent, we had the MiG-21s at that time, and we used the MiG-21s. Of course, we had the Sukhoi 30s, we had the other aircrafts too, who were loitering, who were, it was a very large package which came in from that side. And whilst a significant part of that package was intercepted by our many other aircrafts, but we also use what we have at that point of time, which is a MiG-21. And Wing Commander Abhinandan wasn't one of them. Squadron Leader Minty Agarwal was the fighter controller at that time. Some of you may have seen her interview. And it's like a clockwork thing. It just works. You've run it over so many times in your exercises. You've done so many exercises within the squadron, within the command, outside the squadron, inter-squadron, and it's like this is live and it's happening. Now, what makes Wing Commander Abhinandan a hero for me? Of course, his professionalism, the way he flew the plane and he shot down the aircraft. More importantly, the way he conducted himself in Pakistan whilst he was under captivity. So we would have all seen the leaked videos in which his face was bloodied and he was bleeding from his nose. He was being interrogated by the army, by the ISI, arguably one of the most ruthless intelligence organizations in the world. And he was alone. And how did he conduct himself when he was being interrogated? He said, "I am not supposed to tell you that." Now that's wonderful. That's wonderful. To keep his nerve and to say that. Nothing would have given our enemy greater pleasure than to have Wing Commander Abhinandan on his knees and begging and pleading for his life. Nothing would have given India greater embarrassment than to see him doing that. And nothing made me prouder as a fellow serviceman than when he said, I am not supposed to tell you that. That's what makes Wing Commander Abhinandan a hero for me and for all of you.
For sure.
What I'm glad about is, thanks to Wing Commander Abhinandan, at least most of the people in the country know at least one serving officer from the Indian Air Force. They know the name. So if I ask somebody to name one serving officer from the Indian Air Force, I get a reply. A couple of years back, I would not get any reply. So we all love the unnamed soldier. We all pay homage to the fallen soldier. But here we have a real life hero. And that's great. Coming to the second part of your question, which was, I think it was, how can a MiG-21 shoot down an F-16, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right. So how can a MiG-21 shoot down an F-16? So, Chetan, I think what made you ask that probably is it's of course an older weapon system. If I just tell you it's the man behind the machine which matters and so on and so forth, of course, that's very important. It's a very important part of the answer. But I'll not restrict myself to that. We have to understand what is technology. So we'll have a small interaction. So suppose I have a sword and you have a gun. Now sword and a gun, and we decide to fight. So who do you think is likely to win?
Well, the obvious answer would be the sword. I mean, the gun, sorry. That would be the obvious answer.
Obvious answer would be the gun because it's technologically superior. Now, what is the advantage that a person with a gun has over a person with a sword? What makes
Probably
you
a
say
faster? Well, it's the gun, the bullet can reach the opponent faster than you charging at him with a sword. I would imagine from a layman's perspective, that would be one of the reasons.
Okay, the bullet can reach faster. It can reach faster, you mean, because anybody else? Deepak, would you like to guess on that?
Yeah, I mean, you can shoot from a distance.
You can shoot from a distance. Yes. So that's the most relevant thing. It gives you range. Okay. It gives you range. A gun gives you range. If I'm sitting here and you are 10 meters away from me, you have a very distinct advantage because you have a gun. However, if we are locked in close combat, now who has an advantage?
You will move to the sword.
Correct. Because that advantage of range has been nullified. So you see, it is not always that the gun will win. The gun gives you a certain advantage. It gives you an advantage of range. If I remove that range from the equation, now probably the sword is better because I can just swing the sword and it's very likely to hit you and you will get injured and you'll become weaker. And now I have a distinct advantage. The sword is not so inaccurate. Somebody also suggested once that the sword is not so inaccurate. The gun is very accurate. Well, in close combat, perhaps something inaccurate, but with a all-encompassing range within 1 meter is perhaps better than a very accurate weapon which might completely miss me when you fire. Soldiers, when they are in close combat,
maybe
they have
that's
to, sorry, yes, Deepak?
Maybe, and in that Siachen, when the Paramveer Chakra Award winner,
Bana
climbed,
Singh,
Bana Singh, he had only a kukri, but in hand-to-hand fight, that matters more than an AK-47 possibly.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. Bang on. So it's, in fact, soldiers, as a matter of routine, in close combat, they take out the bayonet from, their holster, fit it in front of the gun, or they remove it from the front of the gun and fight with the bayonet. because that's much more effective than having a cumbersome rifle and trying to shoot with that.
Interesting.
So the MiG-21 and the F-16. The F-16 has got something called BVRs, which are beyond visual range missiles. That gives a tremendous advantage. That is something Mr. Mirage 2000s had when we carried out the Balakot strikes. So we were able to fire from a distance of almost 120 kilometers away.
Wow.
Okay, that's a big advantage. The MiG-21 doesn't have those kind of missiles. However, in close combat, in a dogfight, the MiG-21 being small, being very agile, is as good or perhaps even better. And these were the upgraded MiG-21s, which had very good avionics. The only thing is, now, without getting specifically into this, you have, broadly speaking, you have two kinds of missiles. So you have the heat-seeking missiles, and you have the missiles which track the radar beam. So a heat-seeking missile will go towards the source of heat, which is generally the engine of the aircraft. And tracking the radar beam is a radar cross-section of the aircraft itself. And many times you have to illuminate the radar. You have to illuminate the target with a beam, and the missile goes towards that source of illumination. So perhaps, I do not know the exact details, perhaps in this case, he had to illuminate the F-16 and continue to follow it and then shoot the missile, because had he broken off, the illumination too would have broken off and he would not have been able to illuminate the target and shoot it down. So to illuminate the target, you have to be in a certain zone behind the target, continue following it, be in a certain range, keep on illuminating till the missile hits the target, and only then break off.
Interesting. So, sorry. So just to ask you, since we're talking about, Wing Commander Abhinandan and, people who fly these extremely fast aircraft, a little bit about, the mindset of an aviator, what's his thought process? Because, in our daily lives, when we, go on maybe a mission or a business decision, well, even today in COVID times, going to the grocery store is like a mission, but that's a separate story. But what is the, mindset? How does a pilot at that range, at the speed, take a decision, and how can we sort of learn from that in our relationships, or well, that's a separate question which I'll come to later, but how do we learn from that in our decision making matrix, and share some light on that?
I don't know whether
we don't want all your secrets, but...
actually, again, I will just come back to something I touched upon earlier. It appears that the pilot is taking, split-second decisions. He is.
Mm-hmm.
He is taking split-second decision because the time is very less. But in order to be able to take that split-second decision requires a hell of a lot of preparation and training. To be able to do that, if you try and take a split-second decision without going through that preparation and training, most probably your decision will be wrong. Now, see, the difference is basically, I'll just talk in general, say about a decision which a military commander takes and probably a corporate boss takes.
Sure.
Now, if something goes wrong in the corporate boss's decision, so what's likely to happen? You'll probably have a monetary loss. Okay, in an extreme case, you can have a very big monetary loss. Your industry might fold up. The difference is, in the military, if you take a wrong decision, you're going to have loss of lives.
True.
That's non-reversible, and it's something that you'll have to live with for the rest of your life. Your employees cannot move on to another company, unlike in the corporate. So to be able to, as I said, to be able to take that decision, so it's sometimes people think that you're somehow gifted with this ability to take quick decisions, but you're not. Actually, the military commanders take very, very slow and deliberate decisions over a period of time. Only thing is, we need to see, and this is something that we can imbibe, keep having plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. Because whatever plan you make, the enemy is also making a plan. And his plan is to see that your plan doesn't work.
Sure, absolutely.
So it's not that you plan to do something and you will be able to do it. Most probably you'll not be able to do it. At some stage, there will be a problem. So at that stage, what is the alternative? At that stage, what is the alternative? And then what are the alternative? And then what is the alternative? So since you've already worked out these alternatives, then you are able to take a relatively quicker decision. Okay, so this is not the thing. Let's do it this way. Something like a flow chart.
Sure.
And in fact, most of the missions, you're not allowed to communicate with each other because they'll give away your position. So everything is based on either in code words or it's actually on silence. So everybody knows that we do this. If this doesn't work, then we do this. If this doesn't work, then we do this. And it's like, I remember some of the missions we used to say, clean them up, green them up, and start the music. But while you're going closer to hostile territory. So what does clean them up mean? Clean them up means clean up your cockpit. Don't have any loose articles because you might be required to do some violent maneuvers. Green them up. Ensure that all your switches are indicating green. That means they are ready, they are armed, they can be used. They're not in the safe position. And start the music is start the jamming, start the radar, start transmitting. A lot of times, there's a full package of aircrafts which goes. So maybe, you just have to carry out one drop mission or one bombing mission or whatever the mission is. But it's not that one aircraft going. There are 30 to 40 aircrafts which might be going, 15 to 20 aircrafts which might be going, maybe 5 to 6 aircraft which might be going. Like in the Balakot strikes, there were 12 Mirages which actually delivered the ordnance. However, there were close to 3 times that number which were used for various missions to jam the enemy radars, which were there for interception in case they are attacked, which were there as decoys so that in case they find that there's attack coming from 3-4 directions, you don't know which is the actual team which is actually going to do the attack. Sometimes these decoys don't know that they are decoys. They think that they are actually carrying out the mission, and at the last moment they're told to abort.
Wow.
So they were always decoys as far as the senior commander is concerned, but the pilots there did not know that they are decoys. They thought they are actually going to do the mission, and they are surprised when they are told to abort. So a lot of things goes into it, and it might appear that how is he able to, in such a fast changing scenario, be taking these decisions? Actually, he's worked it out. So
planning, like what if we were to sort of, one needs to educate oneself, one needs to plan and look at all the consequences of your actions and have your alternatives ready, even in your corporate life or your regular life. And that's something that we could sort of, imbibe from what you just told us.
Correct. Absolutely. I think that's a good summing up, Chetan. Basically, have alternatives, and don't just, as they say, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
True.
कि ऐसे करेंगे और ऐसे ही करेंगे और ऐसे ही होगा.
बिल्कुल.
I mean, if it happens, fantastic, wonderful, you're lucky. But every time it's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Okay, Amit, let's assume that, you guys are in your conference room and you'll have made your plans and you have a plan A, you have a plan B, you have a plan C. And now it's time to attack. And you see yourself walking towards your aircraft and you're all alone. You're very clear in your head what the plan is, but it requires a lot of grit, a lot of courage, a lot of centering, to take charge of yourself. So how does one get that in the armed forces?
Okay, firstly, I might be walking alone, as you said, but I know there's a full team behind me. That gives a lot of confidence. Let me recount a small anecdote which, to emphasize this. So there was this soldier during trench warfare. You're in a trench and the enemy is in another trench. And there is a row of trenches. and one of your colleagues is shot, and he is in another trench, and he is shot by multiple bullets, you know. And the friend, his colleague, he asks his company commander that, sir, I need to go and check on him. His company commander says, son, he's dead. There's no point in exposing yourself and going and checking on him because it's obvious that he's dead. He says, no, sir, I insist. I need to go and check on him. And he goes and he comes back after 10 minutes or so. And his company commander asks him, so he was dead, isn't it? I told you it's not worth it. So he said, no, sir, it was worth it. Because when I went, he was alive. And when he saw me, he said, man, I knew you would come. And that made it worth it. So basically, you know, it's a team. When you're in a navy, you're in a ship. Now a ship sails in the water. So there's a water line, right? Some part of the ship is below that water line. It's always submerged in water. And some part of the ship is above the water line. Those of us who've seen the movie Titanic, when the icebergs hit, which was the portion which was flooded first? The engine rooms, right? That's where all the water rushed in because it's below the water line. Why do these people in the engine room, why do they even work and how do they manage to work? They manage to work and they work because they know that the captain of the ship, who is sitting at the highest point of the ship, technically the last point which is going to be submerged in water if the ship sinks, the captain of the ship is going to wait till the last man is rescued before he jumps onto a lifeboat. It is this confidence. And we had Captain Mullah in the 1971 war, who went down with the ship, just like the captain of the Titanic went down with the ship. He's a captain. He can take the first lifeboat and he can be off. But he went down with the ship. This is why is this tradition there? This tradition is there so that the soldier knows the captain of the ship is going to do everything possible in his capacity to see that I am safe, even to the peril of his life. So, yeah. So when you're going towards any mission, when you're going about even by mission, your daily duty of life or anything, you get a lot of strength from this kind of camaraderie. So if you have a good circle of friends, if you have a good circle of relatives, of family, I think that's the biggest security circle. And in the armed forces, since we are posted to such remote areas, our colleagues become our family because there is nobody else. We don't have any other friends. So it's the same colleagues. And in any flight, if there are two pilots, either we both live or we both die. So like in war, there are no runners up in war. You're either good or you're dead. There is no second prize. There is no, okay, I tried hard and it's okay, beta, and you came second, that's okay. So you don't have to be only good, you have to be better. It's like a competitive exam. It's like trying to, crack the CAT exam. So getting 98 percentile is not good enough because if there are sufficient number of people who got 99 percentile, you will still not make it. So it's not a pass or fail. It is about being right there. Only thing here, the stakes are much higher because, as I said, you're either good or dead. At all times, it's an attrition between the sword and the shield. You make a very powerful sword and the enemy makes a very powerful shield. And then you make an even more powerful sword. So you can break that shield. And then he makes an even more powerful shield. So we have this main battle tank, Arjun. They said it's the best tank in the world. And then we have this anti-tank missile. They say it's the best anti-tank missile in the world. Now, both of them can't be correct, right? So one of them is going to lose. So it's a constant battle, and you're constantly, so it's like a competitive world. Only thing, the stakes are so high. So we are doing it every day in our day-to-day lives. But this is not to say that you don't get satisfied with what you have, but you gain a lot of strength that you're not alone. You might appear to be alone. In fact, Corona is a wonderful example. If I keep myself safe, I'm keeping the entire family safe.
True.
If I'm endangering myself, I'm endangering my entire family. It's actually a wonderful example. You either all survive or you all get infected.
Yeah.
So that's how I convinced my son. I said, you should not go out and meet your friends, because it's not about you. It's about us. It's about our neighbors. It's about everyone. So if you're not doing it, you're doing it for everyone. And similarly, they are not doing it because they care about you. Yeah.
So Captain Roongta, a question on talking about, when you were talking about the whole competitive environment, etc. In the personal world, that kind of a situation would end up all of us being who are married in a lot of trouble. So people who are
married, but anyway in trouble. There's no escaping it.
So I wanted to ask you a question that, fighter pilots, when they are taking that decision or that call to eject, what is that, again, I know you said that a lot of it is planned when you're attacking and you're on a mission. When you're taking a call to eject or, move out of a situation, what is the sort of, how does that work? What's the mind there? And a lot of people are stuck in challenging business situations or toxic relationships, etc. Is there something that we can, use or learn, saying that, okay, you need to get out and you need to abort, so to speak? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I can talk about it, although I'm no counselor.
Sure. It's just a thought of, on what's your view? I mean, because you've flown so what's the thought process?
So when you eject? You eject basically when the situation is hopeless. You try your best to retrieve the situation, to get the aircraft back safely on the ground. You save yourself and the machine. But if the situation reaches a stage where the machine cannot be saved, then you save yourself, because it's not just you're saving yourself, you're saving an asset for the country. So I remember when I joined the National Defense Academy, one of the first few days they asked us, how many of you want to die for the country? And we were young, we were enthusiastic, a lot of us raised our hands. And I remember those words of our instructor, which I have used subsequently when, with my trainees. And they said, what he said is, good man, handlebar mustache. He said, we are not here. You are not here to die for your country. We will train you and make you so good that you kill for the country. Let the enemy die for his country. You have to do your mission, come back alive, and do the mission and come back alive, and keep doing it. If you die, you're losing. It's not a good idea. It's part of collateral damage. It's something that you accept that there's a danger and it might happen. Similarly, so when you eject, it's not that you would eject at when things are starting to go wrong. You would eject when things are going terribly wrong. However, the cockpit gives you a false sense of security. If the engine is on fire, it's going to burst anytime. And if you're not ejecting, it has happened sometimes when, due to delayed ejection, the pilot did not survive, because you have to eject. Earlier, the ejection seats were such you had to eject by a certain altitude, you have to eject by a certain speed. If you eject below that altitude, the parachute won't be able to deploy fully by the time you land, and you're going to die. So if you delay it too much, it may be too late. Now, to link it to relationships, yes, I mean, it's of course beyond the point if you feel that something is just not working out. But then I think that should be the very last resort, because a pilot would try and do everything possible to try and retrieve the situation. And it's without ego, without because the aim is to come back with the aircraft. So the aim is to always continue with the relationship. The aim is to always salvage the relationship.
Situation, yes.
A situation, but if you find something is simply beyond salvage, so it's actually very easy to break off with people who are in your outer circle. It's more difficult to break off with people who are in the inner circle. If I feel
Yes.
offended by somebody who's an acquaintance, it's very easy for me to avoid that person. So I just avoid it. I break it off. I mean, I can put in some effort to repair it, but I don't have to. But the closer you are, of course, we keep on trying to repair it, and we should.
True.
Rejection is always the last resort. But
Absolutely.
it is a resort. It is an option. And it should be exercised when there's no other option.
I
Deepak was
believe
saying.
there are military aircrafts which have two pilots in the cockpit. So we are all flying together.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
You spoke about the pandemic in your earlier answer. So what are your thoughts as a country? How can we approach this?
So again, this kind of pandemic requires collective action. It is something which, if you find, there are very few cases in the armed forces, despite being in such large numbers, despite being dispersed all over the country, despite being a lot of them being on leave and then coming back. This is, of course, this is not to say that anybody else is careless or not careless. This is to say that it's a collective responsibility of each of us. I recall I had an opportunity to be in Japan in 2011 when the tsunami struck in Japan. So there was the earthquake followed by the tsunami. And we were in Tokyo. And one of the first things which occurred to me, my wife, was, well, it's a difficult situation. Let's go and stock up. So I went to the neighborhood store with my son, my 10-year-old son. I'm glad I took him, because what he learned there and what I learned there is something which was truly remarkable. So when we went to the store and we started picking up things, perhaps a little more than what was required, because that's what our psyche is, that's what we do. And I found a lot of people were picking up very few things and putting it in their baskets, maybe just one egg, half a loaf of bread. And I asked one of them, I said, is there a rationing? I mean, why are people buying so less? And that lady said, our country is going through a difficult time, so we need to consume less. Now, that was wonderful. That is collective responsibility. Anyway, so we said, okay, we still need to pick up. So we picked up whatever little we wanted to. And it was a big store, a 2-story floor. So we went to the first floor, the second floor, filled up our basket. And while we were coming back, now a lot of things in Japan are automated. You just put it in the tray and you put it on, in the billing counter. It automatically calculates the value of each thing, and it bills you, and you just pay the money and you get the change and you move out. It's unmanned, basically. Now, while we were standing in the queue for the billing counter, and there were a couple of people ahead of us, suddenly the lights went off. There was no electricity. Now, Japan probably has seen loss of electricity close to the Second World War. I'm sure most of the people of my age and younger would not have seen power cuts, like in any developed country. So now there were 3 options. There is no power cut, so you can't do the billing. So what do? As far as I was concerned, there were 2 options. One option was the dishonest option, where you just pick your stuff and walk out. There are no alarms, there's nothing, nobody is going to stop you. You can just go out. That's a dishonest option. The honest option is to keep the basket there and either wait for the electricity to come back, or you just keep the basket there and walk out. That's the honest option. So we decided to do that, the second option. However, what the Japanese were doing was a third option. What is it that they did? They picked up their baskets, which were full of stuff, and they went to the first floor and the second floor and replaced the stuff in each shelf.
Wow.
They kept it back from where they had picked it up. Now, that is a kind of responsibility which each citizen had over there. What I noticed over there is each citizen was like a soldier actually. He was like, the most important thing in Japan was you must be able to work. And here they were not able to work, and that was the biggest source of frustration, that their offices are closed. But he still tried to do whatever he could, maybe go to the affected area, whatever. This is not to say that we should do that now, because the best idea now is to keep yourself safe, stay at home. But the sense of collective responsibility, and Corona is something which really calls for collective responsibility. I think a lot of our countrymen have been following it. I would say more than 95%. And contrary to, I think, popular belief that we had and the rest of the world had, it is impressive. Most of the country has followed it and continues to follow it in whatever way we can. Of course, we are opening up now. We need to open up. The economy is as important, maybe perhaps more important now. But this is the lesson that I learned: collective responsibility, being considerate for the other person, being kind to the other person. Everybody has his own challenges. It's there's no point in being judgmental. So, there were Japanese who were taking less eggs, but if somebody was taking 10 eggs, nobody was telling him, why are you taking 10 eggs? Because you never know. Maybe he has a joint family, maybe he's got 8 people at home, and that's why he's taking 1 egg each. So this is what I could think offhand. So I'm not sure whether I've answered your question.
Sure. So Deepak, if I may, there's a couple of comments coming through, and one of them was, and briefly, Captain Roongta, a very quick comment on that. There's a comment saying that the Pakistan side showed a video where they said that Captain Abhinandan, or Wing Commander Abhinandan, sorry, revealed most of the IAF secrets. So what's the truth behind that? I mean, if you could just briefly touch upon that. What's your view there?
Well, I am not aware of any video which showed this. Now, so what happens is, when there's a prisoner of war, when he comes back, so we had Flight Lieutenant Nachiket, who was taken a prisoner of war during the Kargil war. And he too was returned after about 5-6 days during the height of the war. And just like Wing Commander Abhinandan came back after a couple of days. So there is a full debrief session. There is a full, you can say, a counter-interrogative session, which is done once you come back, in which you try and find out exactly what happened, the whole sequence of events, put it together, corroborate it with other circumstantial evidence. So I would put it this way. A lot of things in the IF are on a need-to-know basis. So to the extent, even the mission that you're involved in is on a need-to-know basis. You know about that part of your mission. Okay. So to think that somebody has revealed all IF secrets, first of all, nobody can reveal all IF secrets, because somebody of that rank and that position wouldn't know all IF secrets, would not have access to them. It's on a need-to-know basis. If you don't need to know it, you won't know it.
Fair enough.
Unless proven otherwise, I would like to believe that he stuck to whatever he is briefed and trained to stick to.
Okay.
So this is my take on it, and this is what I would like to believe.
Okay, thank you. Deepak,
Yeah. So I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Some questions. So this is from Shubhaji, and she says that she has deep admiration for the armed forces. Without you guys, we wouldn't be who we are and what we do. Jai Hind. But she wants to know that the younger generation does not seem to incline to join the armed forces. How can they be motivated in this regard?
So, ma'am, I wouldn't say that the younger generation is not inclined to join, because we have a lot of applications who apply for the NDA. We have about 4 lakh aspirants for NDA every 6 months, out of which finally 300 are selected. So it still continues to be one of the most competitive exams in the country. Having said that, 4 lakh need not necessarily be the 4 lakh best guys. So I completely understand that the best of the people in the country may not be inclined to join the armed forces? That's a very valid statement to make. Well, one of the ways how you can motivate them is, I was motivated to a large extent by my parents. Although when I finally revealed to my parents that I want to join the armed forces, they were shocked. So see, this is the irony of it. It is placing emphasis on character, on honor, on ideals as parents, which kind of makes a person, which shapes the ideals of a person as to what he wants to be. I remember when I was young, my father, whenever he would travel, he would get me one of those Amar Chitra Kathas in which I would read about the great kings or the rulers or a whole lot of stuff, which kind of shaped me. One of the ways is seminars like this. I'm glad that you're attending this seminar. Thank you so much for that. One of the aims why I do this seminar is just to spread a little bit of awareness. This is not to say that it's the most dangerous profession in the world. If you join the armed forces, you are going to be dying. No. It is, of course, you are exposed to danger. But as I said, the armed forces train you to stay alive. You're supposed to stay alive. You're not supposed to die. Okay? So as parents, first of all, we must understand, do we want to send our children to the armed forces? Because it's always, the armed forces are good from a distance. Okay, so yeah, we salute the armed forces and it's a great thing, but would you like to send your children? No, perhaps not. So first of all, if we get convinced ourselves and just give those kind of ideals which you feel attracts you to the armed forces. In my case, whenever I saw anybody from the armed forces, I would admire them from a distance. Until I reached a stage when I felt, why not be one of them? So it will come naturally from your child. You can never make up anybody join the armed forces. He won't be able to go through the training if he's not self-motivated. And another myth I would like to just bust is, you don't have to be a top-notch athlete to join the armed forces as an officer. No. You have to be mentally strong. You need to have a lot of qualities for which you are assessed. If you have those qualities, the armed forces say, we will make you fit. It's not a big deal. If you are, by and large, reasonably fit, which people are when they are 16 to 20 years old, which is our target group, we'll make you fit. Deepak knows I wasn't some great athlete. I wasn't like, some Mr. Universe or something. Not at all. I was a very average person. Perhaps who couldn't even do 5 push-ups at that time. But we'll make you fit. That's not difficult. That's not difficult. We have a whole lot of Bollywood heroes who are fit, right? How you make them fit? You have a fitness coach, unko gym pe lagao, fit ho jayega. That doesn't mean he has those qualities, because it's not about physical fitness.
Okay.
It's all in the mind. It's all about courage. I'll give you an example. Even the physical fitness test that we have during selection, they are actually not checking your physical fitness. So there was this ditch and there was a rope hanging and you had to jump and catch the rope and swing across the ditch. Now, actually it wasn't difficult. That ditch was a really small ditch. Anybody who attempted it would have cleared it. But there are a lot of people who did not attempt it. It's all in the mind. If you are willing to attempt it, you will clear it. So we have to know that. Are you willing to attempt it? If you are willing to attempt it, which only has to come from self-motivation, you will clear it. This is true for all exams. Say you want to be a CA, you want to crack one of the most difficult exams, abroad or in India. Can any parent make you pass that? No, you have to be self-motivated to be able to do it. You can just create an environment where that person feels motivated to go in that line.
Thank
Right,
you for that.
Hmm.
Appreciate you answering that question. And it holds true for life also, that, as long as your mind is determined to do something, I'm sure you will end up achieving it. So appreciate you sharing that. I would like to, again, thank you so much for your time, Captain Roongta. This has been quite informative. things that we have learned today, which I'm sure as civil society we did not know of. We learned about some heroes like Bana Singh ji and things like that. So very informative. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your life learnings. And we again salute you for being part of the armed forces and keeping us safe. We hope that you would come back on the Pavitra platform at some point in time. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for attending another session. This is the first of Pavitra Salute. We will continue to bring you a few more. We have an exciting week planned at Pavitra. We have mystical stories on Monday by a spiritual leader. On Tuesday, we have an Ayurveda session by Dr. Dimple Jain. Thursday, we have the Bhagavad Gita by Nityacharan Das ji. And next week, we will have another session of Pavitra Salute with a COVID warrior who's making a difference to our society. So join us again, stay connected in Pavitra Connect, and have a Pavitra evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chetan ji. Thank you very much, Deepak, for providing this platform. And I'd just like to, I had made a little this thing about life lessons. I'll just leave you with that if you give me a couple.
Please, of course.
Okay. So I somehow missed that during my talk, but I find that it's there. So this is something I'll just try and relate to the Air Force, and which we can use in our day-to-day life. So whenever we line up on a runway for takeoff, whether it's a military flight or it's a commercial flight, you'll find that the aircraft is held on brakes on the runway, and the pilot starts opening power and then releases the brakes, and then the aircraft moves ahead with a jerk. So many times we have the power, but we are just holding on brakes. So we need to release the brakes, and we have a lot of power, and we will go forward and be able to take off with a lot of power. Another thing is, whenever we have a target at a distance, I need to align myself with the target from a distance. And I can't come too close and try and align with the target. I have to align from a distance. So have a target which is some distance away, maybe 3 months, 6 months, a year away, rather than, so you are able to align with it, and it will be a perfect alignment. You will be able to go towards your target. And something which my instructor told me during my first flight, and as soon as we were cruising and he gave me the controls, and how we transfer controls is, he says, you got controls. And I say, I got controls. And that really filled me with a lot of confidence that I got controls. So, I'm finally controlling this thing. So we can take control of our life, and we have the controls. Nobody else has controls. And it's all about balance. So if you're riding a bicycle and we try and turn, we cannot just turn the steering. We have to lean on one side and then turn the steering. So we have to balance that turn. So it's all about balance, whether it's emotional, physical needs, whether it's office and home, whether it's as far as the decision makers are concerned, health or economy in COVID situations, everything needs to be balanced. If we go in one direction only, it is going to be catastrophic. So it's about balance. I just wanted to leave on this note, and thanks for the extra time, Chetan, so that I could continue.
Pleasure. I think this last, these were real gems for us, and I'd like to thank Deepak for being such a great host along with me. And once again, have a Pavitra evening, and hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.